seeing record-breaking digitization in procurement. Last year it was $5 billion in procurement recorded. And there's an interesting finding on why business owners want to digitize procurement. We'll discuss it. But on a similar note, people have been digitizing billing. And that's something that I believe these are the two pillars that especially medium-sized construction businesses really want to digitize. And there are very clear reasons why people want to digitize this. Your revenue minus your procurement is your margin, so you want to make sure that all your vendor rates are visible to you with their history, right? What are they charging you in this project? You want to eliminate over-ordering. You make sure that you digitize your site inventory so you exactly know, do I order it or do I make a site transfer? So procurement digitization has been killing it for the same reason. When it comes to finance, you don't want to not get billed for a work that you've already done. I was talking to one of my customers, he told me my 5 crore bill was not paid because 5 lakh was not done. And I had to make sure that's done and then I had to pay. And also when you digitize your payables, you receivables and payables, you get to know your real-time cash flow gap. Starting from what work you have done, what you have earned, to how much you owe your vendors. So when these things get digitized, a business owner gets very clear on-hand view of how to run his business. These are the most important things for him to make sure there is a better margin control. And we have been building in this direction. I'm going to show you what we did in the last 6 to 12 months. We have been doubling down on these two things because we really think that customers value this. And by the way, when we started the company, the first thing we digitized, any guesses? We were way wrong. We did not digitize this first. Any guesses what we digitized? Yeah. We made an app to upload photos from site. We were like, Instagram is there, so something is working. And we were very wrong, but glad we did it. And so now it's pretty clear to us, okay, if we make sure that the procurement is digitized, people know what's going to hit the site, when. And when do I owe those vendors payment? And when do I collect? If this is all clear, all visible on my palm of hand, I'm going to be making sure I make margin in that one. Switching some gears, I know this event is about AI, but I wanted to really talk about these two things. And by the way, while doing this, we brought procurement services, we brought financial services, we made sure that we really go deep in making sure that our customers are able to do this well. On your tables, you will have software account managers, sales reps. You will also have a procurement team and a finance team, which is actually helping on-ground customers to get better procurement and finances. So we really want to make sure that these are the values that we build for. So switching some gears. So if you notice there's a trend, the amount of things that we have been building is going up. By the way, the team is not increasing. So there's something changing, and that's where AI comes in. You know, for a business like ours, our main core thing is to make software. Let's talk about something in software. Roughly 4 years ago, AI could write an email. Roughly 1 year ago, AI could fix a bug in software. And now, AI can code an app from scratch. You know what's happening? The productivity and the outcome is doubling every second. That's astonishing, especially for people like me because we build software. You know, if this phase goes on, by the way, this is Moore's law, the CS. If this goes on, that's something I think a lot of people don't get. And the people I try to get inspired from in my industry have made it pretty clear that if you don't operate with AI as your strategy, it's going to be very difficult to survive in the future. So yeah, that is the topic of the event. We want to discuss with you guys that what's the way forward in construction? What do you think can be automated through AI? And obviously the foundation is important. You can't do AI without digitizing or without having a foundation of your data in a structured format. So yeah, we are going to discuss what's the way forward. I'll end my keynote here, but I want to take a question from the audience. In fact, ask a question to the audience. What part of your business do you really think should be taken away off your plate first if AI actually can solve it? If you could please scan this QR, you'll get a basic questionnaire. It will give you 6, 7 options. And we want to just quickly run this and show you guys, okay, what does the room think? We have put all parts of your business, so you don't have to. Folks, can I get the result on my hand? Oh, nice. If someone faces a problem, please reach out to your team. They are on your table. But the results are interesting. Ooh, 20 responses already in. Nice. Go, 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 30 plus. Nice. This will give a real sense of what the room thinks. We'll take it for 2 more minutes. Okay, cross 50. Very nice. Okay, I think we'll stop now. We have crossed 60. Okay, so interesting. Yeah, yeah. Sorry. I also. Okay, so I think I'll stop. So responses are still coming in, so I'm just like it's going up and up. I have a lot of questions after seeing this. I think we'll ask a few. Okay, guys, I'm going to stop the counter. We have received 65 responses. Nice. And the highest, like the most popular problem that people want to take, the part of the business they want to automate using AI is finance and cost control. So I think we're somewhat moving in the right direction. The second place is, again, procurement and supply chain. So again, I think we are moving in the right direction. But the interesting third thing is estimation and tendering. Followed by, okay, so this is interesting. People have voted for site operations to be automated by AI. And that's, we are going to discuss this for a minute. Where do you guys think site operations can be automated through AI? It's a very interesting question because a lot of that work happens on the site. And for example, if it's about data collection, if your team is going to collect it, or you buy some expensive hardware with like solid AI to capture everything. And like I've seen people doing it through drones. I've seen people doing it through helmet mounted cameras running through the site and capturing a video and making a lifelike version of the site, a digital clone. Are there other ideas on this direction? Would love to know. And then anybody wants to add on this? Anybody seen a really interesting use case in automating site operations through AI? Hey, if someone needs the mic, we can. Okay. Cool. So, good thing, the top three contenders we are going to cover in what we do today. So good news. And I'm really interested in I'm looking forward to basically talk to you guys and understanding how site operations can be done through AI. And I think probably I'll catch up with you on your tables. So here's the end of my keynote. Thank you for coming in. We are going to have great conversations. We are going to make it more relevant for you. We are going to have 3 speakers. We'll start in a minute. So, hang tight. Thank you.
तो वो ऑटो में रखी हो ऑटो में वो ऑटो में वो आईएसओ ऑटो में है ना वो अंदर डार्क हो तो आईएसओ इंक्रीज हो रहा है ನೋಡಿ NTS ಫೈಲ್ ಇರೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಫ್ಲಿಕರಿಂಗ್ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಶಟರ್ ಕೂಡ ಅಲ್ಲ ಫ್ಲಿಕರಿಂಗ್ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಇದು ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಹಿಡಿಯಿರಿ
paper to become a number to become a decision, and a decision to reach the right person in time. We've got today our first guest, Mr. Madhu Arvind, a very senior project professional, managing more than 2,000 crore plus project portfolios at ITC. Please welcome Mr. Madhu Arvind.
I think it's on right here. Okay. Yeah.
We'll also welcome our founder and CEO, Ish Dixit, for the same reason. We all are here in this room because of him. So, before we start, uh, we've been talking to Madhu sir for last now 1 year now, right? We've spoken to so many teams across ITC as well. Uh, we had a very great learning experience. So, first thing I want to start with in terms of when we talk about starting projects or digitizing projects, how do you typically look at digitization as a first process?
So basically, when you talk about, I would call it digitalization because for me, digitalization has also got a cultural change. Digitization is just taking something which is already there, kind of digitizing it, and there's cultural change. So we always look at it from an intent standpoint. Tech doesn't precede intent. So you have to understand what you need and then go find the tech that helps you rather than kind of finding a tech and then trying to kind of find an intent how to work with it. Okay. So that being said, digitalization basically looks at an intent, the strategy to win obviously. Then you have the digitalizing process itself where the cultural change becomes a part of it and how do you ensure widespread adoption. That becomes very important. And how do you get to a point where that widespread adoption also kind of fosters innovation? You have to move ahead, right? When you look at something like your digital maturity matrix, when you become very digitally native, you're already ahead of the competition. The digitally native part already says that you're ahead of the competition, and that's a moving goalpost, right? So, intent, strategy to win, then you look at, how will you get there, cultural change, and then get into digital native. So, that would be a way of looking at digitalization.
So, a lot of businesses here, when they look at being digitally native, uh, what is the starting point that you typically see? Is it the pre-construction part? Is it the finance part? Because everyone is curious about mostly, or the questions typically come is, where do I start?
Okay, so this is the egg and the chicken story. Okay, so there is no right answer to this. I would look at the industry itself. There is a duality in our industry. Okay, I'm talking about the entire construction industry. On one side, you're talking about the procurement part. One side, you're talking about the project management part. Why there is a duality? Because we're talking about something like risk. You're doing procurement to effectively transfer risk to what you're procuring to. And you're doing project management to ensure that the risk stays there. So these are the two areas that you're talking about. Now, if you look at it as a dual process, you can actually start from any part. You start from procurement, digitalize your procurement part, and then come back to project management. Or start from project management, go to procurement. In our case, we did the other way. We started with procurement, digitalized everything, digitalized processes, digitalized something as simple as awareness. And then we are getting into procurement, getting into the crux of the matter and stuff like that. So, the straight answer is there is no straight answer. You need to kind of look at what is important for you as a business and start with it.
So, I would want you to weigh in on this in terms of what you see at Powerplay in terms of the product usage.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask. So, a lot of our customers, when they come in, we have to tell them that the site teams are able to easily use the mobile apps. Because one of the greatest pain in digitization for a medium-sized business is that the site team feels that it's an additional work to put information in a system on a phone, right? And I know we had a discussion 2 3 days back, and talked about situational awareness. That was a very interesting topic. Could you just connect the dots to how like a business can make sure that their site team comes on a tool? Because you can make it as easy as possible. You can make it like the ability is not the problem. I think the motivation and trigger is another.
Yeah, yeah. Anish, I will start off with when you asked that question, right? What do you want to get out of your process? I was joking to my colleague over there that justification is something that I want to get out of the process. You know, that's the biggest problem, right? When you're digitalizing something, people always come and ask, what is the ROI? How do you make back this money? And this is the problem everybody has. I mean, every walk of life, everybody is looking at it. So what we did, we said, let's not look at ROI, let's not look at IRR. Let's look at something which is very simple. So we are looking at a concept of situational awareness. Situational awareness is nothing but whatever you do, how you do it. It can be as simple as playing a game or doing something in your workplace, doing your everyday mundane work. How it starts is you find that information, you make sense out of that information, you predict consequences, and there is a direction and an action. Every time you make a mistake, there is a feedback, and you correct your thing. It's just like a child eating a spoon of food, misses its face, hits its cheek, it realizes that it's made a mistake, next time it gets it right. And this is what we do in construction every day. So when you look at something like predicting consequences, it depends on the experience of the team. If you have a team which is much more experienced, they'll predict consequences like this, right? And then you have direction and action. Depends on the complexity. Now complexity can be that I don't know anything what is happening inside. Complex. Stress, because of not having data, not having, there's a stress that is created. So the direction and action is completely dependent on stress, workload, complexity, all these things.
I would like to interrupt here. I would want to have a more specific story around this.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
point is, if you're able to make information available to a person faster and he's able to make more coherent sense out of it, he will take better decisions. So a lesser experienced guy will make better decisions. Now I'll give you an example of this. Very good that you pointed me at that. The previous project that I did, the average age of my team was 18 years. Today it is 10 years. So, I mean, when they talk about ROI, I talk about the experience that I've brought down. Obviously, when you bring down experience, the cost that you've brought down in the thing. So, today I see younger people in my team taking better decisions than we could ever do at their age. And that's because of data. That's because they know what needs to be done and how to do it. That's situational awareness from that standpoint. Yeah, so.
And if we, so it's very interesting because if people are always, let's say you enter the site and you told me that when you enter the site you have all the information.
Yeah.
You're not going there to
Yeah.
collect information.
Yeah.
And that's a very powerful position for you to be because then you are there to like unblock people, solve
Yeah.
problems and go away.
Yeah.
So and making sure that the site teams are able to put data on the software and they are motivated to do it so, right? So is there a correlation with the age factor? Because a lot of people tell me, okay, see, if my site engineer is like a 25-year-old person, I think he'll be able to use it. But I can't ask my project manager who's a senior person to use it, right? So there's an age correlation here. Do you see that same?
See, what we have noticed is as you age, you obviously, if you're very lousy at your job, you'll remain a site engineer. But obviously, if you're not, you would be in some position where you are in a position of making decisions. And every stakeholder, every hierarchy in the system needs to have a certain kind of information. Everybody need not have the same kind of information. Now, taking you back to something like situational awareness, why do you remember things that you read in the newspaper and listen to radio when you drive back to work? Because it's delivered in a format that you are able to consume that information and put it out there, right? Now, say you're able to tell your project manager as a journal that these are the things that happened yesterday, and it's a quick read for him like a newspaper. Don't you think he'll come in and make a lot of impact? Do you think a person who's like maybe 5 years, 6 years experience can still do the mobile thing, and this guy can look at the dashboards? And so we are not doing that thing like one pill fits everybody. We are looking at the age of the person and also looking at what is his time more used for, rather than, I mean, so our people are still using mobile phones. Like say for example, in my case, I don't look at the checklist every day, but there are some very important permits and stuff like that which I sign. So that's okay for me, right? I still have the understanding of how it has to be done. but I need not get into the everyday work of it. So looking at it from that standpoint would be better rather than kind of categorizing age group that way. Yeah. So young people are supposed to do that, and they are supposed to kind of get into things and learn. Yeah, please, yeah.
Fantastic. That brings me to my next scenario where we always have in our construction company the one, right? The person who holds most of the project in their head, right? Obviously, at IDC scale, you have a lot of systems and processes, but there is always someone when anything goes wrong on a project. There's someone to call, right? There's one person mostly people would relate to, right? Have you experienced this, or was there a world when the system is not existing?
Giving you an example from the last few projects that we have done, if the project manager goes on leave, it all goes, because every schedule, everything was in the project manager's head. I'm happy to say that in the last 3 years I've taken all my leaves.
Wow.
I go on leaves. It's okay. I mean, people go on leaves in the teams because the point is data is important. Data is key. Bigger thing is how do you allow a person of that importance to log his data? Today we have something very simple as a work progress tracker that we have, which kind of put contextual things to people's reviews. Like say for example, the biggest, okay, let me give you an example of observation and judgment. Okay? To give you from everyday walk of life, telling somebody that you're late every day is a judgment, right? But telling somebody that 16 days out of 30 days you were late is an observation, which is more palatable, the second one, right? So we are talking about converting all judgments into observations, and the only way you can do it is by having data. By actually logging what work needs to be done, where it needs to be done, how it needs to be done. The measure of achievement becomes very important. So people are able to kind of take that break. People are able to, and we at our company, we believe that people need to take a break. And that this helps us. This enables us to kind of get to that point where we are able to kind of give that time off, because it is a system and it is not a person.
Yeah, actually, this reminds me, it's a very good point. I think the business owners really like this concept. One of the most performing ads was related to teaching, right? Because yeah, you want to go on a vacation, right, without worrying that everything will go on, right? So that really resonates.
I'll add to that. We see construction as a 7-day week business, right? Everybody talks about we work 7 days a week. That's something taken as a pride in certain sense, right? But eventually, my next question, follow-up question because of this is, where do you see if there's a human bandwidth required in every decision making, right? And I quote you on the last time we were having this conversation that everyone in your team journals, right? How do you translate that journaling into a decision making process as you're going down in average age? How do you convert that observation into a learning, into a an actionable, action-oriented at a different scale, right?
Sometimes what happens is we don't try to kind of put a regimental aspect to something like this. Journaling is journaling. Why do people journal? Just because they can journal. There is nothing that they'll get really better, they'll become mindful or something like that. So the point here is when you journal, you are sending out a certain information to a person who can consume whatever he wants is important for him. Like say for example, a journal can have that such and such statutory authorities visited site yesterday. Now this is something for somebody to consume. It is of no importance to somebody. So the point is the journaling aspect. Now look at it, you have the project story from everybody's mindset on the entire thing. You have the data. Tomorrow I can give it to AI and ask what happened in this project over the long run. And then what happens? Now, journaling is very different from learning. We were talking about learning. The biggest thing that people came and told us was that, I cannot open an Excel sheet and write learnings. Excel sheet is the base.
Right.
So today we have automated that. You can go to a chat screen and say add learning and type whatever learning of yours in your own colloquial language and it will record. It doesn't judge you, it doesn't say, it is your learning. We are trying to democratize and to make it plainly available to everybody. And not to kind of, how do you say, overtly make it so important that, you have written one spelling wrong, you've done, that kind of that kind of regimentization and that kind of...
Not the tactics, the logistics.
Logistics, okay. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah, that's a good word. So looking at it from that standpoint, so tomorrow, when you create this amount of data, this amount of journal, this amount of learning, now the learning data, I'll tell you today we have close to 900 entries. So I will go ask it when I'm starting the next project, what am I supposed to do in the schematics team? And it will give me a list of things. AI will give me and tell me that, do all these things. I think last time you guys got all this wrong. That's it. One, right? You've won something, right? You've converted all the judgments into observations now, and that's something that we're trying to do.
What is your take on this?
Yeah, I think adding context to this is really important. For example, I can journal about a lot of things, and today maybe AI is at a position that it can put that context on your journaling, and that has changed, right? 1 year ago or 2 years ago, if you write a lot of text, it might not be able to make, okay, this is schedule related, this is inventory related, this is related to my subcontractors, right? But now, with NLP, it's going to make sure that it understands. Now it understands, it will bucket it, and it will provide context, and then it stores in that context, and next time when you face a problem, or it can highlight it, okay, was last 5 projects, your vendors did not do the right thing with you, right? So you have to make sure you choose the right. So this context adding is something that I think we also try to do, because we want to make sure that if our systems are smart enough that when you put in something, the context is labeled. But 1 year ago, we had to ask people to put that context themselves. Today, that's not required, and that's a big change.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the confidence that we have also got. All the automation that we are running.
It's all based on the fact that
Okay, yeah, okay. So, and all the things that we're doing today is based on this, all the automation that we run. We are not putting a lot of work for people to do. We are telling them, do however you feel is correct. And the data mining will happen at a level that you don't have to be worried about data mining. You don't have to be worried about structure. And so you create that kind of a bandwidth for people at that level. And then you create structure at some place where you're able to data mine and stuff like that. So it is a how do you say, a bracketed kind of a strategy where you're able to data mine.
Interesting take on this. So that brings me to a question. We spoke about data democratization, allowing people to express themselves irrespective of the channel platform, right? But a lot of businesses, typically what happens is they bring in a lot of software for certain purposes, right? So in your experience, if you can cite a story where you brought in a software but the tech failed, maybe a project management, or ERP, or a procurement, what happened?
So we at ITC, we are a big believer that one pill cannot solve all the problems. And you need to have a tech stack. Logically, because every technology or every software provider probably is looking at their strategic focus might be very different from something else. So what happens is you need to have many things that you need to do to get to a point of complete digitalization. So that is why intent becomes more important. Now look at something like SAP, okay, woven into large conglomerates, something that you are not able to get out of. And this is getting into a situation where people cannot let go of SAP. All payments happen in SAP. For example, I'll give you an example from us. We still book GRS percentages, believe it or not, because it's SAP. Because building that kind of UOQ line items into SAP costs a lot of unnecessary money, which we don't see anything coming out of it. So we're stuck with it. Okay, so what happens? You are looking at how do you kind of keep it where it is, and then kind of digitalize the rest of the things so that it becomes an input-output thing, where you push something, get something out. Now also you have to look at how the precursor to SAP works, the procurement itself. We are talking about supplier relationship management all the way to spend analytics, and SAP falls somewhere after contract is awarded all the way to spend analytics, right? SAP doesn't give you any spend analytics, so to say. So what happens is when you start from there, you're looking at, okay, so what is so different about construction procurement? See, construction procurement is the only procurement where we negotiate time, cost and terms. All three. That is why when you spoke about manufacturing being 100% improvement. Now manufacturing, what do? They go out to the market, want to buy a bottle of water, they just buy a bottle of water. Nobody tells me, give me 10% more advance on this, I'll give you 5% discount. So it becomes complex. When you look at construction procurement, it becomes very complex. So point is, there is no tech available today to handle construction procurement that way. To kind of look at all these things and bring everything together. So what happens is, probably start with a BOQ. Make your BOQ alright. Make your specifications alright. Then put these things together. So it is an evolutionary process. Nobody can get to completely digitalized tomorrow. It's not possible, and you cannot just give a pill to somebody and say that okay, tomorrow you are completely digitalized. It doesn't happen. You have to discover. You have to make mistakes, and that takes time. And as you said, AI is coming, so you'll have to be ready for that.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, this answers the question that we were discussing. I think starting with BOQ, do you think it's the right approach? I think I sort of agree with that.
Absolutely.
Because that's where you get paid also.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of motivation around it. And then you link all your, let's say, payables to it, so that you can track line item level profitability or margin.
The construction industry is going through a big revolution right now in India, as you can see. In India, the biggest problem that we have, the specification is nothing is must be. So if you don't write something in your BOQ, nobody does that. That is why you see our BOQs, you have things written like etc. complete, as told by the engineer himself. Yeah. So all these things are written because there's nothing is must be. So how do we get to that India-centric specification? How do you get to that point where one platform can house all these BOQs, which everybody understands? It can be a very small contractor to a very large conglomerate. The specification becomes very tight and very structured. Then what happens is, you don't have to kind of make this problem of I didn't get this, I didn't understand this. Today also, to kind of give you a small thing, when we do procurement, we spend the first 2 rounds making the contractor understand what he's supposed to do. The first 2 rounds of negotiation, we are not talking anything else. It is just about scope clarity. Now think about that scope clarity coming from the first day. Because it's an India-centric approach, you're looking at a specification, you're looking at BOQs that way. So what happens? You've already saved close to 50 days. Which is going to be very, how do you say, it's going to be great, it's going to be path-breaking when this happens for India.
Yeah, I think I have a question. Do you have a follow-up? So, you talked about, that's a very interesting fact, you don't penalize your vendors.
No, you cannot.
And that's a great, respect for that. And so, you told your philosophy around that, right? Can you please elaborate?
Yeah, so, you cannot penalize a contractor unless the contractor wants to be penalized. Very simple as that. Okay. Why? Because I'm sure there are a lot of people who are in the contracting business. But the biggest issue that you kind of see is undercoating in our industry. Okay. Today, any engineer who's sitting here would know that buying some concrete, which is M40, it is never more than 12,000 rupees. That everybody knows. But nobody knows that M40 concrete cannot be bought for less than 6,000 rupees. Correct? So there are many ways where a contractor would undercoat, get the job, and then kind of come back and this. So undercoating is not only cost, it's also time. A contractor might come back and tell you that I'll finish this work in 15 months and actually do it in 24 months. Now what is happening? Because the contractor ecosystem itself doesn't want to get penalties and penalized, the wrong contractor will always get the job because he is undercoated. It is only when every contractor, the conglomerate of contractors start telling, please put a penalty, please penalize me. When I say 24 months, I will finish it in 24 months. That is the only time that penalties or bonuses and rewards work. Otherwise, they don't work, and that's where we are.
If you can quote a story around this.
Yeah.
I remember you quoted about, is it on similar lines? What is your...
Yeah, so, okay, so the last project that we did, the project cost was somewhere around 645 crores. The civil package was 280 crores. We had an extra claim of 40 crores on that. We had 16,000 checklists, 388 RFIs, 60 meetings. And when the claims came, 40 crores of claim, we had to go through 30,000 emails. I remember somewhere around 5,000 photographs. 142 contractual communications, close to 300 RFIs, to actually kind of, in our case, when a contractor raises a claim, it is our responsibility to prove that it is right or not. So what happens is, so we go through all this. You'll not believe it. We spend 20% of our time looking for documents. We actually had a register where we wrote it down. That how much time we are taking to kind of look for documents, just to kind of write letters back. This time, we have 26,000 checklists, 89,000 photographs. Your Instagram thing, I understood, because today we have like Instagram. You go right, RAF, you all get all the photos for RAF. So we have 89,000 photographs. We have 3 letters, usually asking for extension of time. You know what has happened? We actually interviewed our contractors and asked them that what changed? Why haven't you raised it? Because sir, everything is transparent. I don't have to, I know what is happening. So transparency becomes important. The contractor being party to such a nice information management system is not raising claims. And we have nothing today. We have 0 claims. When we compare to the only civil package and 40 crores claims that we have. Because it's about that understanding gap, right? Again, judgment, observation, contextualizing stuff, digitalizing kind of helps in that direction.
Perfect. Do you have a point on this?
Actually, I wanted to understand, so your framework of shortlisting the right contractor, or right, and you, because you deal with a lot of them, right, and you don't penalize them, so there must be a hard criteria to get.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll try to center this question more, right? So you're doing a lot of cross-site procurements, right? We see that problem a lot with the existing businesses where typically the turnovers are 100 to 500 crores. At ITC scale, it is probably solved vis-a-vis systems, right? But when you talk about vendor selection, right? It's mostly there's sometimes a lot of arbitrage in margins, right?
Yeah.
Do you also see is it visible to you in real time before the purchase, not after?
Okay, so I mean, when I'm talking to you about the entire process, I'm talking about supplier relationship management, and it is relationship management. It is not a. I mean, so it is very simple. The word itself says it is a relationship management. So that is where the actual journey starts. And to look at financial due diligence, to do technical due diligence, to ensure that the contractors that you're enlisting are good enough to do the job that you want, with the risk appetite that you have. I mean, risk again, I always take things back to this. You can get a contractor who's doing an okay job for your project if you're ready to take a risk, financially. But if you want a contractor who has to kind of complete this job, and so it is many things that you look at, right, when you're doing financial and technical due diligence. So we have something called a band, like say 100 crores this contractor, 100 crores plus this contractor, 500 crores plus this contractor. And so that is how we kind of, and also there is a procurement strategy. Sometimes what happens when you go above 500 crores, we try to keep it like a GC or like a lump sum contract rather than make it remit road. So those kind of things happens. Yeah. I mean, there is no straight answer. It is the only thing that you can do is digitalize this entire process, so that you're constantly learning. I take a cue from what he was saying. If you don't have data, you don't know where you went. You will never know where to go. You should be able to take up all these things probably tomorrow and feed it to an AI. And this is what I've done in the last 10 years. Tell me what I should do better. And these answers are very important for us going forward.
No? What interesting learning that I've learned is you spoke about processes, bands, and then the key takeaway for me was still relationship, right? Does the team still negotiating there? Is negotiation still a key lever, or is this something that completely driven by process?
No, relationship still plays a big role because again, you're talking about risk transfer. Okay. The point is, until you reach blockchain, we are all trying that, right? All of us sitting here, everybody in contact, everybody me, everybody is here. Ultimately, where do we want to be? That 300% that we saw? Blockchain, yeah. You do 1 m cube of concrete today, by 8 o'clock you get paid for that 1 m cube of concrete if there is no quality issue. How do we get to that point? The only way is data-driven decisions, and to ensure that these things are kind of, stitched in such a way that nobody can kind of do anything. But until then, Relationships
That
play a
reminds
bigger
me of
role.
the story that we were talking about, that your vendor was okay.
I think a lot of people in the crowd will also agree to that. It's difficult to achieve.
Yep.
How do you pay your vendor every day? Like you can't, like if you don't have digital data available to calculate how much to pay, you won't be able to. You can't arrange someone on the side all the time to verify what happened.
Absolutely.
Right? And the interesting point you said is your vendor was okay with being paid less,
Yes.
but being paid before time.
I'll add a little context to that. Now 8 o'clock, let's remove 8 o'clock. Our contract says that 21 days is what you need from a certified bill to pay. To certify a bill, it takes whatever time. Nobody knows how much time. Okay, it is given. When the QS comes, he will say, he will do. Now, let's look at something as simple as excavation. Okay, excavation uses something called Simpson's rule. Okay, in a large site, it takes close to 20 to 25 days to take levels and to kind of do the calculation. So basically, you are getting paid for something which is 25 plus 21 days dated. Okay, we in our site, in one of the sites, we have started doing it for all the sites now. We use LiDAR to measure excavation. Okay, and the contractor, from the time he submits the bill and gets paid 5 days. Okay, and he got paid 4% less than manual calculation. He never batted an eyelid. Just said, I'm okay with it. Because I'm getting paid so fast that my cash flows are in and I don't have to be worried about this 4%. So, yes, when blockchain happens, these risks of this 21 plus 25 days are passed on to the customer and we will benefit. So, obviously, we are looking at improving the value chain and making sure that things are kind of happening.
So, the customer saves money, the contractor gets paid on time.
Yeah.
Like win-win situation. They can carry on with it.
100%. And we'll get to that 8 o'clock someday in few years. Yeah.
Ish, I would like to you to weigh in. So, Madhu spoke about data infrastructure. When you look at your customers at Powerplay, right? How do you see your clients looking at a SaaS tool or a data?
From which perspective is it?
So, they look at it from a cost perspective, they look at it from a
so
infrastructure perspective, or
so
is it an ROI?
Very, I'll give you a story. Last month, I met 5 customers and I asked them the same question. What is your priority, sir? Is it controlling delay or controlling cost? It was like 0 and 1 question. And all of them chose cost. Now, if the story flips of what about Sir said, that if you control your delay and convince your customer to pay faster, then the cash flow problem gets solved. But I was surprised. And anyways, if the customers want that, we go in that direction, we build it. And I'm still curious. Like I try to dig it down. I think mostly people feel that getting paid, right, is something that happens with less frequency. So it's okay to not be digitizing that first, right? I hope that's the reason. What do you think?
I'll dwell in the gray with this. Okay, we were also a great believer pre-2017 that there is a cost overrun, there's a time overrun. Cost overrun, time overrun. Now we stopped talking about cost overrun and time overrun. We are talking about something which is called predictable outcomes. Every business, every factory that you build, every building that you build is built on an IRR, right? You have a hurdle rate. If you put that money in the bank, how much interest are you going to get? How much money are you making for your company? Every business runs on an IRR.
Working capital.
Working capital, IRR. And cash flow, cash in, cash out, it's a calculation. And probably you'll have a hurdle rate of say 13%, 14% or something like that. Now, we are talking about predictable outcomes from a standpoint of ensuring that your IRRs are met. That is your business outcome that you are looking for. You can do 2 things. Reduce your cost, your IRR is met. Delay the project a little bit, but you reduce your cost, your IRRs are met. You do the project faster, there's a little bit of cost, still your IRRs are met. So we are talking about predictable outcomes, and that is why digitalization becomes important. Everything that you do, you are not looking at it as an overrun, and you're looking at, do I have information to make this decision so that I am able to spend money somewhere to get this thing done faster. cost to complete becomes the biggest challenge that all the project managers are having in India. We don't have real-time cost to complete. What is cost to complete? How much money do I have in my pocket? How much have I spent? What do I need to finish this project? And it is a combination of many things, under procurement, planned procurement and all these things. So predictable outcomes become more important, and we have stopped looking at it as overruns. We are looking at it as, am I able to predict? Am I able to control my error? That's
We're looking at it as a system of action.
as a system, yes. Yeah. And not separating this as such as of now. Yeah.
Interesting. So one thing I would also want to pick your brain on, how do you look at data or softwares or systems, which are digital systems? Do you also look at as cost, as an infrastructure, or as a system of action?
You already mentioned ROI is not into play.
ROI is not. See, that's the biggest one. Yeah. So obviously, data is infrastructure. You're building it to kind of let something great happen to it in the future. You were talking about 10,000x, right? When 10,000x happens, what happens to that 60,000, 70,000 checklists that we have made?
Yeah.
It just takes it and tells you how do you do it. It will do time motion study in a second, in a microsecond and tell you. But we have to be cautious.
Makes sense.
To give you an example of what we did, we used an AI called Powerplay AI, which takes large CSVs and gives you answers. It does analytics really fast. So we gave it large CSVs from our digital plethora of digital things that we had. 5 questions we asked, 3 times it was wrong. Okay? It hallucinated too. So the point here is why we were able to say it was wrong, because we had structured data. We took an hour to check it was right, but it gave us an answer in a millisecond. Point is, why do you need structured data initially? Then it becomes culture, obviously. After some time, the structured data will become second nature for everybody. Right now, you need structured data. When you put AI, at least you can do sample check. Otherwise, you are making business decisions based on something which you yourself couldn't have done. So we are being cautious that we are ready for AI. We are already kind of using AI in so many things and stuff. We are already talking about AI to be used to kind of check rebar. It is a very simple photographic thing. We are already doing a lot of POCs on that. So, but the point is, being cautious, create structured data, digitalize, and then get to a point, cultural change, and then to get to a point where you are able to use AI and probably kind of snowball it to another level.
Yeah, so key takeaway for me is not just data as infrastructure, structured data as infrastructure. Have it more transparent. I could see ITC already moving to blockchain, creating transparency across value chain. Also as a tool of AI governance, right? Check the alignments, right? So that is a very interesting take for me. I would like to have a contrasting opinion.
I'm in the business of structuring the data, right? So I'm making sure all my customers structure their data well. I recently wrote a blog on how a vertical SaaS tool is actually the context layer for AI.
Yeah, the background to it is SaaS is that, but actually.
Yeah, right. So if you have your data in a vertically integrated SaaS tool, you have a very high chance of leveraging AI in the future because your data is already getting into a structure. So I don't think I have a contrasting opinion. I totally agree with what Sir is saying because without that, I don't think we'll be able to train AI, right? And it will pay off. And then there's no point. So the reason it happens so fast, the AI adoption happens so fast in software development is because everything was digital. Every logic that a developer wrote was in the files, right? So it was very easy. But for an industry like us, without that data, it's going to be very hard. So I think the best chance for a customer or a business in construction to leverage AI is to start structuring data on software first.
Fair enough. I think that brings us to the last question. Let's assume that you're starting a 1,000 crore project or 2,000 crore project, right? Knowing everything that you know today, what's the one thing that you would do differently in the first 30 days?
Okay, I will not answer that directly. What differently is not.
But I have a clarification on this question. Is sir part of ITC, or is he starting a new business? Because a lot of my customers are picking up 500 crore projects or 100 crore projects.
Let's make it a part 2 of that question.
Yeah, because I think that would be a great learning opportunity.
That's a very interesting thing.
Yeah. So, okay, let's picture a thing that the entire project is about effort. You're putting in some effort and you're getting something out of it. Now,
there's input out.
Yeah, it is input out. Now, when the project progresses, your cost of making design changes becomes high. Mechanical, and as the project progresses, any decision that you make will cost you money, right? And so, my constant endeavor, I don't look at it from an improvement standpoint. My constant endeavor and my constant vision is to push the effort curve forward, so that when I make critical decisions, my cost of making those critical decisions are very low. Like, I'll give you an example. If I talk to you in construction stage that you have to change a column, it's going to cost you money. What if I tell you in concept stage? It doesn't cost you anything.
Would it be safe to say it is more proactive than reactive?
Yes, from a data standpoint, and from an effort curve pushing standpoint, you should be very proactive that way. To always look at digital tools, always look at digitalization in a way that your effort is pushed to the front end of the project and not trying to do most of your effort in the back end. What I mean is, like say for example, if your GFCs gets revised many times when construction is happening, you think about the logistics of it.
Right.
Usually in most of the companies which are sub 100 crore projects, the site engineers do the splash metals. Now think about 1,800 drawings going through say 3 reviews. You're talking about close to 4,000, 5,000 drawings. 5,000, 4,000 transmittal, probably a site engineer. That's huge, right? And that's the amount of data that you're talking about he's handling. Now say for example, during your detailed design, you have got to a point, you put all your effort, the drawings are so correct that you only have one review. You only have to send it out once. He's home. Now this is what we have to constantly snowball into. And not look at learning as a binary thing and probably look at it from a standpoint of pushing the effort constantly to the forward and constantly look at how do I get everything done today, and that sense of urgency has to be there. And that's something that I would always do differently. Even if I do a project and after that I will always look at sense of urgency, I will always say that I would do it. And for the business standpoint, if I do start something, I would definitely make it more digital from the day one, and make it less about kind of making people understand why digital is important, and probably start with the BIM model and start with things which are kind of digitally savvy altogether. But yeah, other than that, I would say the effort standpoint is always something that I would push ahead. Reduce push, and that's about it. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's great. I think we have a next guest, Mr. Shubhakar Rao.
Please give a big round of applause.
So we were discussing, sir, we had a great discussion about data democratization, how we put bottlenecks. I know Champions Group has multiple arms, right? Finance, you're doing luxury projects, the cool projects. How do you see digitization as a process in terms of, as a setup process? I know that you've also done computer science from Fitzgerald, right? So you're a techie at heart as well, right? I would like to touch on how do you see data democratization setup when you start a project from the very beginning?
See, we're into beach lagoon development projects, so most of them are large, meaning typically 50 acres, 100 acres. Obviously, without digitization, you'll be lost. There are so many moving parts. Today, construction itself, even with superior ERP, you have small incremental hiccups here and there could translate into multiple crores in incremental costs. and one small typo, not digitizing right, could mean serious cost overruns. So it's a no-brainer that today's companies which are doing construction as such have to adapt to it, and companies like us even more so, because we're kind of building communities, large communities, kind of calling them smart beach cities.
Right.
And, a 1% to 2% cost overrun means tens of crores.
Yeah.
Actually, sometimes hundreds of crores.
I'll take a follow-up question on this. So you mentioned your projects are lagoon cities, luxury residentials. Does complexity at the end make this worse or just differently broken? In terms of the complexity of luxury projects, the entire BOQs are custom, right? I'll pivot to the question is that there must be an example where your team would have misread a BOQ, maybe, that turned into a real side problem, right? A wrong spec maybe, a wrong unit, missed a line item maybe, right? What did that cascade cost in, right? Any example that you can cite?
See, for us, we have an additional dimension, right? We are creating, for example, a 4 or 5 acre beach in the middle, artificial beach. The various moving parts, and like I said, this adds additional dimensions. You have liners, and these liners have a specific of thickness. One wrong order, even by a couple of mm thickness difference, means the liner will be for 3.5 acres of a beach, and this most likely will be ordered from a country outside. Actually, Crystal Lagoon liners come all the way from Canada and US, and these obviously mean significant changes, and not only that, delays, right? It's not just cost. Cost we can understand.
Can you give us a number or maybe some idea
For the gravity of the problem.
An example?
No, the gravity of the problem. Say, for example, a lagoon liner costs us around, for 4 acre project, will cost us around $2,000. The replacement is $20,000 cost. That's only 2 or 3 crores. But the replacement timeline is what I'm talking about. It has to come all the way from US to India. That adds an additional 3 months if there is any order problem. So that's significant. For us, apart from the cost, timing is the real cost.
Right. Madhu sir in the last conversation was mentioning about drawing revisions, right? So I would also want you to touch on the point is, so you do a bit of a prefab and very unconventional constructions like lagoon projects, right? Does your drawing revisions change materials significantly, or they change the factory flow? I mean, prefab, right? So how does that land in your project?
Yeah, drawing revisions for us is significant. If you look at it, for each of the Crystal Lagoon projects, there are all 45 different drawings that we actually get from Crystal Lagoon, and then any small change to the contour or any of that has to result in these entire 45 drawings being redone. And there are actually sign-offs done saying any change will mean, literally in the document it is signed off that each change could mean over $50,000 difference in drawing costs alone. These are done at scale. You're doing, in some Crystal Lagoon projects, the beach itself is like 42 acres, 50 acres, so any small change reflects on the entire flow.
Can you cite any disproportionate delay that you've experienced where an unresolved item ended up something much larger?
So, for example, we're doing a 7-acre project called Champions Beach here on the border of Sajjapur and Tamil Nadu. This is a small change. We're going through the initial, I would call it, design stage. And we decided to have, instead of a regular clubhouse on the beachfront, we had this great idea, we'll do a yacht-shaped clubhouse. Great idea, conceptually, put it on AI, it comes in 1 minute, it makes it look fabulous, right? On the beachfront, a yacht-shaped clubhouse versus a regular clubhouse. But what this meant for us in the entire change proposition, the drawing facet is, it took us almost 1.5 months of setback in the entire project. Sure, we now have an iconic world-class yacht-shaped clubhouse coming. Wow. But it also means, I know what that means for us in the cost overruns and time overruns, right? That actually cost us maybe another 15 crore just because of the delays.
And so, you spoke about delays in products and cost overruns, right? Does this also cascade into working capital challenges?
Sure, working capital actually is becoming easier than what I initially started this journey with. When we started this journey of doing multiple beach level projects, we were actually Johnny come a little late to the real estate party. All the big boys were already in. We got in saying, okay, we'll do something different. We'll not do like other real estate builders. We will introduce new amenities, new ways, right? The beach itself is new. Yacht-shaped clubhouse is new. Like that, we have 100 new amenities. So working capital finally has started flowing in a little easy. But still, that is the thing that can break or make a project. I think if there are entrepreneurs and people in this room who are aspiring, the number one skill for success in real estate is ensuring your plan. Any delays in the front flow, if you have that start-stop phenomenon, it's just not the month that you stop that hurts your project. That start-stop phenomenon delays your entire momentum by multiple months. And it also kind of affects the morale of all the team, the entire thought process. And money by the nature of it, right? When you have a 75-acre project which is going to result in issuing 3,000 crores, you have to start understanding value of money. If 3,000 crores delayed by 2 months, what does it mean? And the impact is already running into tens of crores.
So I have a follow-up on this, sir. The crowd has businesses going from, let's say, a 30 crore in annual turnover to 500 crore annual turnover. They are like growth-focused companies. We have seen them growing like 3x last year, and all like people who start from 25, 30 crores are in a position where they actually have to solve this problem, right? They face a lot of problems. The beginning phases, then as you said, it gets easier. So what would be your like 2 cents or like the top 1 or 2 advice to make sure that they solve this problem as they scale, right? What are the things they need to make sure in their business?
See, if I had a way today, like I said, as Johnny coming late to the real estate party, but definitely, if you have a 500 crore budget for your project, I think 5% of that can be comfortably put towards, I don't know, be it a Core 26 or some form of digitization plus ERP solution mix to start. If you don't start it right with the right investment for your project, cost overruns, time overruns can kill. This is where planning is needed. You have a 500 crore budget for the project. You definitely don't want cost overruns or time overruns. And you tend to probably think the software investment or the investment like this can be done later. I would say that will be the first thing you should do. And then your BOQs, all that, your entire process.
So when you digitize all this information, how does it really help you get, like, does it help you get financing in the future easier? Or how does it help in actually unlocking the cash flow part of the future?
Sure. These days, like I said, the hard thing I've learned was about financing and getting funding and all that, which is actually the first thing we should all learn.
I would like to have an example of this hard thing. Okay, if you can share an anecdote with us or an example.
I've done crazy things in this financing and funding route. Went to probably at least 40 events across the world. Be event happening in Singapore, event happening in Riyadh, I'll be there. And then I realized, and there is funding in the country as well. That's the good news. You don't necessarily need to fly around the world for funding. And it's all over the world. There is a Luxembourg fund I'm currently pursuing. It's coming at 2.75% interest rate. Unheard of, right? India normally gets double-digit percentage as the interest rates for any other fund we get here. But that comes with its own criteria. You have to deposit $5 million before you consider things like that. So those normal small players might not have 50-60 crore lying in the bank, deposit there and then wait for that kind of funding. While the regular players, if you have your BOQs, if you have your plan right, some of them will ask, I want one of the big boys like PwC or Deloitte to give me the report. So you cannot just present the report done by a regular player. And these all are investments you have to make. If you want to raise hundreds of crores, I think those steps are inevitable. I've even went on, booked a flight from Bangalore to Delhi. I came to know of which flight this banker was in business class sitting from his secretary. Made sure I landed at 2 a.m. in Delhi. He was flying back the next day morning from Delhi to Mumbai, and I figured that these are the times that you can really get them. As in you're sitting next to them for the next 3-hour flight. It is as captive as you can get. They're not going to be able to go away anywhere. They're sitting next to you. Your conversations are done, your deals are done. But you have to do all of that. So there is tremendous amount of effort involved in fundraising, but nothing beats the power of that, and nothing beats, I'll call it, you can call it begging for money, but hey, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, once you have the money, you're the deal maker, you're the king maker. So,
Bringing that back on the project management when we spoke about, when you start a project, when you have a BOQ, you have a contract, you have drawings, right? Tell me about a time, I'm assuming that you're using a project management software or you digitize certain part of your process. I would love to have an example where a time error or something error that baked into your setup of your PM software. When did you find out and what did it cost?
Yeah, I think the better question is, you probably would be having a tech stack on you, right? So,
yeah,
how much time does it usually take? From all my customers I hear, okay, if I choose a software or an ERP today, it's a huge investment for me, right? I have to first train my team, then I have to make sure all my data goes into it seamlessly, right? And it takes a lot of time, right? And this is one of the key challenges. So I was talking about moving out of SAP, the pain, right? You can't, right? So
risk transfer, quality.
So setting up on a new system of record or ERP, right, takes a lot of effort. So any story around this when you brought your tech stack or probably any ERP?
What do you want? I mean, what do you want it to behave like and what it actually did? Something, an example on that.
We see a lot of stories like this. We'd love to know if you have any.
Sure. See, tech stacks today are not integrated. This is true world over. Companies are trying to do it, and you typically have a lot of teams. We also, for matter of fact, do but a lot of them unfortunately are not integrated and thus not aligned. I'm not trying to brag that we have anything better, but we're trying to, and thus I'm here as well, right? We're trying to figure how we can improve this process and expedite, because